again, and welcome to the next issue of Technopolists. I'm your Technopolist. I am Ken-Chan.
And I am MC2P4, otherwise known here as Movies McConnell. Hello.
And he's the other Technopolist. So some prelims. We are not on a schedule here. We make these episodes when we get time. We've had a little bit of a hiatus because I've had things to do, Movies has had things to do. So, but we always come back around to it at some point. So, when there's a dry spell, just bear with us on that. And there you have that. Been playing, of course, a lot of some of the new video games I'm playing on Oculus is Warhammer 40,000, I think it's called. Battle Sister, first-person shooter, stunning graphics. Really hard game, too. It's one of those you get ticked off, you want to throw the headset. But
but not Metroid, not like Metroid Prime.
No, not that hard.
Okay.
No,
okay.
Nothing is Nintendo hard, except Nintendo games. And I also heard, speaking of Metroid Prime, I heard that Nintendo has the Metroid Prime trilogy ready for the Switch. They just haven't released it yet, so
really?
I'm looking forward for that to happen. So
you're not all Oculus. You're not all Oculus right now.
No. I got.
Just to clarify for the audience here, it's like I know you're very pro Oculus, and of course that's the flavor of the year, right?
Yeah, it's hard for me to do that too because it's Facebook, and I hate Facebook. So it's like, why did they have to be the ones to come up with something awesome? Why couldn't it have been somebody else, anybody but them? Why? Well, I hate Facebook. Why are you trying? How come you make me like them so much? But I like the Oculus, and they did something that I like, and I can't help it. You Facebook.
It is encouraging, though, to hear when, you talk about other... I mean, because I have no problem with that. I mean, I would love to play it. Next time you come, I want to check it out.
Yeah.
But it's also encouraging, though, to hear that, again, some of these systems have some real lifespans, that they're still, people are kicking stuff out for them and making different games and stuff, and, actually porting things from, real classics and making it really a good... if you're going to redo it or you're going to do it for a platform, you might as well do it properly. You might as well, you're not just going to do nothing against Atari Jaguar and stuff like that, but some of that stuff was ports, that just came over, like Wolfenstein 3D, things like that. But I mean, if you got the time and you got the money, why not, right? You had to get an Atari plug there. But anyway.
Yeah, well, the other Atari plug is the VCS is now out too, so.
Yeah, there you go.
I've heard some pretty bad things about that, but what else is new? Nobody ever has anything nice to say about Atari ever.
Right. Well, everybody hates the Fuji. They all hate the Fuji, baby. Yeah. But anyway, I'll stop talking and let you get on with where we're going here. Just to give a little prelim, just for a moment here. I don't know if anybody was a fan of certain comic TV shows and stuff, but in the case of something like Seinfeld, they would have what I would call a transition episode, and then they would have what you would call the awesome episode and stuff. And I would pretty much call this a little bit of both, because we've been following these topics and doing these things for a while, and I think we've reached a little bit of a climbing plateau here, where we've gotten to some topics that are going to re-energize some subjects that are going to re-energize the topics that we're doing. And maybe this would be like what you would call a building episode, maybe a Terminator 3 or something like that, right?
Yeah, okay.
That being said, I'm going to let Ken-Chan here take the overall subject that we're going to get into tonight.
Okay, well, the overall subject is the future is now, and it is, and I've often thought this. I mean, in the 1980s, we all saw it coming. We saw, computers coming home. It took 10 minutes to send 16 kilobytes through a hose. This long, it took it 20 minutes to do it, but now here we are in a world where we can talk to our computers. Everybody has some kind of either some kind of home assistant, Amazon or Google or one of those, something like that, or Siri. We have our phones that can talk back to us and things like that. So, I mean, we don't have the flying cars as of yet, but, I don't think that's going to happen anytime real soon. But instead of those things, we have a lot of other things that did in fact happen. And the first thing we're getting into is modulated sound waves, which is not my bag, baby. So,
I found a book back in my library by Ken-Chan. It's called Modulated Sound Waves Really Are My Bag, Baby.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Uh-huh.
Well, that being said, then I would jump in here and say this was kind of my topic that I wanted to bring up, and the only reason why I bring it up is because, let's face it, we're all getting older. If we're happy and relatively healthy and lucky, we're all getting older each day, right? So as we get older, I would prelim this as saying that there are things that I remember that other people don't remember the same way, and I know you feel this way, Ken-Chan. However, there are certain things in life that were said or were done, or they were a drop of a pebble in a pond that either made me think of something, made someone else think of something, or any kind of poignant moment, okay? The one I'm going to say here is that sometime between the time that I graduated from college in 1988 and moved down here to Pottstown, somewhere between that time and about 1992, and we can look this up, and I think this would be something for a future show, is that there were some experiments done by, I believe, a Russian at the time, a USSR, I guess, / Russian, because everything was changing at that time. There were some attacks. There were some perceived modulated sound waves. In other words, somebody aiming a modulated sound wave generator, whatever that really would turn out to be, because as we know, sound waves are typically movement of air. Now, you may not, just like a set of wavelengths of light, you may not see those specific wavelengths of light. You may only see the ones that you see. At the time, there were people that were claiming they were being bombarded by this modulated sound wave set, and it was making them go crazy. Now, there's also people in the 90s that claimed that the extra low frequency ELF antennas that the Navy were using were making their brains knock around in their bone cases and making them crazy and giving them headaches and all that. There's a lot to be said for that. Now, all of a sudden, recently, right, now we've gotten into, you hear Sokolos and all those guys with crazy hair talking about how Battle of Jericho, people use sound waves and they move things, okay, blah, 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 all that. But now, just recently, there have actually been some nefarious governments in the EU that have been using modulated sound waves against people. They did it in Seattle just recently in those riots and all that crap that went on out there. Also, just from the standpoint of perception, let alone technological, like, hitting somebody with something, like banging in their head with it, you go back to the early 90s and you have David Koresh and the Branch Davidians. Well, wasn't that kind of ironic that somebody went to a music store and bought an Ensoniq Mirage sampler and then put the Singing Monks source disc in it that went, that were doing Gregorian chants, and they played it at 1,000 watts and aimed it at the Branch Davidians to make them go crazy. So there's like the low end of that, and then you have the high end of that. And it's just funny that, like, this is the one example here where I can actually trace, and I swear to you, this is not just me perceiving something from some weird movie I saw a long time ago, because I am Movies McConnell, but this was discussed back then, and now here we are, 30 plus years later, and, what are we up against here? Like, you haven't heard about any of this? You haven't heard about any of this, like the using modulated
I know. Okay, so I the last time I heard anything about this, it was a long time ago. I'm not going to divulge the resource from where I heard it, but I did. I do remember reading something about military experiments where different frequencies played at the same time can cause fired into a crowd. First of all, it disrupts the crowd. If there's a crowd there trying to do something coherent, it disrupts it, and they can't. Something about they first of all, it's too loud. They can't communicate with each other.
Think about explosions, right? You have a chemical, you have a kinetic explosion, you have a chemical explosion, and you have a nuclear explosion. Those are your three, okay? Now, what you just kind of said almost made me think in terms of there's a physical aspect to the sound wave, there's a disorienting aspect to the sound wave, and then there's a destructive aspect to the sound wave. Just as there would be for a light wave or anything. Like, in other words, if you break it down into it, like, think about it. The kinetic is you blowing up a balloon. Pop. Right? Force in, force out. Your chemical explosion is 2 chemicals, 3 chemicals, 5 chemicals being mixed, something oxidizes and explodes or burns. And 3 is your nuclear, fission or fusion, creating heat or, actual elements in its combination and outputting something. So here, if you did the same thing with light, and then we're talking the same thing with sound, just imagine if people could or did move big objects using sound in whatever way they did it. Imagine that you could probably actually, if you could target radiation into a body, why couldn't you target sound waves into a body? And I would give you the example of when I saw Yes in 1984. It stood outside of Hershey Arena, and Chris Squire played Amazing Grace and The Fish, and you actually felt your internal organs, each one would like shake as he played like the different frequencies of his bass. Yeah. So I mean, it kind of makes me wonder.
I mean, anybody that's ever been to a rock concert, a really loud rock concert, like in the first few rows, you feel the drums going right through your chest.
Yeah,
I mean, and stuff like that. I know at work we have this fire drill. We have this fire alarm that when it goes off, it's this, it's a screaming thing, and like you can, my head vibrates when it happens. It's so damn loud.
But it's perfectly designed, right?
Yeah,
it's perfectly designed to wake your ass up.
It will wake you up. Yeah, no matter what. If it shakes you awake, even if I imagine somebody that's like mostly deaf would hear that. I mean, feel it at least.
Can you imagine the like in farming, you use a case report form, right? Like, what was your temperature today? How are you feeling taking the drug? All these things, right? Right? Can you imagine the QA form for designing the wake-up alarm system for a hospital? Okay, which did you find? More annoying or less annoying? And the next one, which one did you find? Less annoying or more annoying, right? Like, they probably had to do like this whole QA check with people of, well, if you're fully asleep, like they gave them like 2 bottles of vodka and said, now fall asleep, and they're gonna wake you up out of it and be like, fire drill, like, can you imagine what the questionnaire for the people testing the system must have been? That's insane.
Yeah.
But that's a good point. I mean, again, you're back to that physical, then like the 3 levels of damage, like just to annoy, right? To actually influence or to actually change the physical structure of the body based on sound waves.
Yeah.
So point well taken. Hey man, if you sit at too many front rows of the Judas Priest concert, if you sit in the front rows for too long, it might do you damage. It's obviously going to do damage to your hearing if you're not wearing hearing protection.
Aren't there some medical applications for that where they introduce sound to like scan things or something?
Well, that's what an ultrasound.
Okay, okay, that's what I thought. They're looking for like baby movement. They use sound and it passes it through water. I know I had that done. I had something like that done on my knee one time, or on my leg one time. They were listening to the pulsing of the arteries and veins in my leg, and it was the weirdest. That stuff sounds. It was like.
And a really excellent ultrasound, because I worked in radiology for 10 years, right, in the technological parts, and I learned all about the modalities and stuff. And a really good ultrasound technician won't tell you because of HIPAA and JCO laws and all that, but they will actually sit there. They can tell you maybe not what's wrong with you, but they can certainly hear where there's a problem. Like when they're listening to that and you're hearing it, it just sounds like a record going round and round. But to them, they'll hear like those little differences because they had the audio in the room so that you could hear it, right? Like they would turn it up so you could hear what it was doing.
Uh-huh.
Is that what they did? Yeah, it's pretty cool, isn't it? It's like
it's it's almost like you can hear water moving or something like that.
Well, that's what it is. Yeah, right. Remember, we're back to Star Trek, ugly bags of water. we're back to that. But the next thing that we had talking about, and getting into another subject was kind of the. And I know Ken-Chan is very much into this, as I am too. Is the whole disinformation kind of world right now, and I would lead into this topic just by saying this. I've been watching a whole lot of YouTube recently because I have it on my cable system. I can just go into YouTube with using my Fire Stick. And so I watch, the guys, this is your daily dose of internet, and I watch all those kind of things and stuff. But one of the things is the guy he always does he's like a 60-second aggregator guy. He just gets stuff from around the world and puts it on. And somebody got on there and said, hey, look at me, I'm this color and I'm this and I'm that. And then he says, but really I'm not. And then over the next 30 seconds, he proceeded to tear off his face, rip off his hair, change the size of his body, pull down the background that was in front of his green screen and all this, and everything that he showed you in the first 30 seconds was all fake.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
So here we are. I'm going to lead you back into this one. So what are the three things here, right? It seems to be that everywhere in the world and everything in the universe, 3 is the magic number, right? And 3 is the first prime number other than 1. So what is it here? Like, are we now looking at another thing of there's the physical, I can make myself look different, and there's the digital world of I can make myself look and sound different, or then there's the true disinformation. What would be your take on that? Like, where are we now at this point with that?
That is the problem with disinformation is I don't think anybody has 100% pure, real information. That's hard to get to that point. Some of the guys that I like to, Carl Sagan had this thing called the baloney detection kit that he came up with. And there's this, you want to Google it and look it up. I don't want to go into all that right here because it gets into it.
Sure.
And I'm a big fan of Michael Shermer and the Skeptics, and the Skeptic Society, or the whatever they're called. Skeptic Magazine, I've picked up a few issues of that, and I like the way that they go about assessing things. And it's really hard when you're trying to figure out what's true and what's not. There's it can take forever.
Sure.
And this is why we need science, because science is the best. A lot of people say, oh, well, scientists, what do they know? It's really the best way that we have of assessing what's going on.
Well, the scientific method.
The scientific method. They go in. A lot of people think that scientists are just these guys in these tweed suits with these pipes sitting in ivory towers pronouncing things from on high, and that's not true. Let's take like the whole smoking thing, so the cigarette smoking. Like years ago, they used to say, well, cigarette smoking, it's bad for your health, it can cause cancer. And then you had these other people going, well, maybe it's their diet, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. So they do test after test after test. And then they spend millions of man-years, thousands of man-years, showing over and over again that, yes, this is a problem, yes, this does cause this, it causes that, over and over again. But what they also do in the scientific method is they try to disprove. They go out and they look at diet, and they look at this other stuff, and they try to disprove what they're doing, because if they don't, someone else is likely to do it, usually with great glee. So this is one of the reasons why science is so important, to try to keep the scientific method, to try to keep disinformation from spreading. But in the world of the internet, now you have the situation. Back in the 70s, you had some nut that believed some kind of kooky, crazy thing, but he kept to himself, and he didn't really talk about it much because he thought he was the only one that thought like that. Sure. Not anymore. Now you can go online and find all kinds of people, no matter what you think. This whole flat Earth thing, let's just take that. There's all these people out there that think the Earth is flat because, well, I don't feel it moving. It's like if it was round, everything would fall off. If it was spinning, everything would fly off of it. You know, and they find other nuts that think the same thing, and because they feel that because there's a bunch of other people that believe this, there must be something to it, and it doesn't work that way. But you know, the internet has helped. The internet has been the greatest source of information that has been available to humankind. It's also been the greatest source of misinformation, and disinformation available to humankind.
Sure, and you know, it's funny you say that too, because okay, going back to the scientific method. Well, I mean, first of all, the whole flat Earth thing is just, I mean, come on. Like, I like to counter all of that by making this statement. They hide information about things like that in stuff called books. Okay? The other part of this is, going back to what you were saying about what science tries to prove and science tries to disprove, you know, it's like any kind of hypothetical situation. It's like your hypothesis might be that A plus B equals C, but you might find out that A plus B really equals minus F, you know. But it's not a wrong answer to come up with an answer that's repeatable. And conversely, same thing where, like, okay, I did software installs for a company. Now you go in with these giant electronic documents and you're going to install the software and you're going to make it all work, and then you're going to go through a post-qualification, installation qualification, operational qualification, and then, you know, post-qualification, post-install. So now when you go down through, something might fail, right? That doesn't mean that everything fails. It just means that one part of it fails. But also, additionally, I worked for a company that was so good that you would feed the system data and then test it, and then it gave back good data. 2 plus 2 is 4. 4 plus 4 is 8. Okay, all the way through its calculations. Now, feed it bad data. What? Feed it bad data. We don't do that. Yes, you do. What does it do when you feed it bad data? Right? So that's the same thing as you saying that somebody is going to test a hypothesis and say, well, life came from this. Okay, well, now prove that it didn't come from a rock from space. Well, kind of hard to do, but you do have to follow whatever way you can in order to try to prove that. Because, you know, it's like it's really easy to just say, well, God puts the stars out at night. Well, that's not really an answer, you know,
right,
like,
no,
and that's a colloquialism, but you would be surprised at, you know, that's really just the antithesis of the Arthur C. Clarke statement. And again, disclaimer here, I'm a huge Arthur C. Clarke fan. I don't get into his politics or what it was or whatever he was accused of, don't care. But his whole point was, any technology sufficiently advanced to a uncivilized society will appear as magic instead of technology. So same thing here. You know, you turn it on its side and you say, well, I don't want it. You can just fully reverse it and say, I don't want to know that I'm on a planet that's spinning around the sun, that's infinitesimal out in the end of the universe, in some, you know, dirty backwater underpit arm of a spiral galaxy, you know, far, far away. I don't want to know. I want the world to be my oyster and I am the one in charge. Well, that may be just a human trait.
Yes, it definitely is. Michael Shermer, two of Michael Shermer's books that I read, The Believing Brain and Why People Believe Strange Things. He goes into yeah, they're good. He goes into how people go from point A. Your brain is wired up to perceive patterns. It's why you have these cognitive bias. You know, you look at the clouds and you see shapes in the clouds. Why people see one of the ghost things that happens. Like, well, I saw a face in the wall. Let's say, or I saw a face. Because your brain is wired up to see faces. Your brain, your brain is wired up to go eyes. Oh, there's a mouth. You know, little babies when they're first born, you can literally take a piece of paper, draw a couple of black dots on there for eyes and a smiley face, and hold it there, and they'll sit there and stare at it because to them that's a face. You know, they've done that. You know, that kind of thing. And it's like, superstition is something that happens even in the animal world. They did experiments with pigeons, giving them treats. That's something, again, it's something you want to Google, but anyway, they thought that the pigeon gets the idea, it pecks this thing and the button, and the treat doesn't come out, so it turns around, it turns back around and pecks it again, and now the treat comes out, but it was on a timer, But the pigeon thought, hey, okay, so I turn around like this, and I turn back around and I peck it. And these pigeons end up doing things like turning around 3 times this way, once this way, and then pecking the button, and they get the treat, and they think it's them doing it, but it's not. It's on a timer, and they don't know that. But
that's that's pure conditioning, and again, you're back to Das Experiment, right? My 2 favorite ones that you can't do anymore: Das Experiment and Test the Tester. And I talk about these all the time, but the one is roommates that have been roommates for 2 years were put in Das Experiment, and they're told you're the jailer, you're the jailed, and by the end of the weekend they have people that were roommates for 3 years beating on each other. And then the other one is Test the Tester, where it's like, I'm going to give you sets of words, you're going to read them back. Every time you miss one, I'm going to give you a 15-volt shock, and it's going to increase every time.
Right.
The person in the other room's an actor going, you're killing me! And some people would go, I'm not going to press that button anymore because that person yelled. Other people would hold the button down and be like, okay, next set is, and it's like 385 watts. I'm sorry, sir, you didn't read it. Zap. And it was funny because some people, again, in this pseudo, I would say that when you were talking about seeing faces in nature and stuff, that's pareidolia, right? That's you see the face, even though nobody else does, you see it. Okay, well, same thing here. You see somebody on TV, they haul out of a house, and the grass is high, there's 6 kids, there's a lawnmower sitting in the front, and this guy's pulled out, and you say, look at him, man, he even looked like a psychopath, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'd like to see, somebody shown 2 different pictures. You see Ted Bundy, and you see Charles Mudman Sanders or whoever, and you go, well, which one's a psychopath, right? One's a criminal, but one's a psychopath criminal, right? So it's almost like your brain, like you're saying about the animals that do that and stuff too, the same things here. Like when they showed those people at the end of Test the Tester, the guy that was holding down the button, he literally looked like somebody that would, in my mind, see, and this is my prejudice, but in my mind, I looked at him and thought, he looks exactly like the guy that would press the button and hold it down. But then there were other people that looked just like housewives that were wrong, 485 watts, holding it down. And they're not hurting anybody, but they're trying to see how far someone would go, because they're really trying to see people in Nazi Germany were coerced into doing these things. And everybody kept saying, well, they had a choice, and they were trying to show you really didn't have a choice. You were manipulated into the situation, and that's the same thing you're saying here. These animals are manipulated into a situation. I've always heard the joke, I don't know if it's true, but they said that if you take a bunch of gorillas, right, and you put them in a cage, and then you put a banana in there, and the first gorilla takes a banana, all the other, if they have all the other apes beat on the first gorilla, then they keep conditioning them over and over again, they keep putting bananas in there and they'll never eat them. Because every time that the gorilla reaches the banana, the other gorillas will beat the crap out of him.
Yeah,
so it's just conditions that. So it's kind of like you start to begin to realize that the best thing that you can study at 14 is psychology.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So, well, anyway, something that we can look into. And I mean, this kind of to get back around to it is 1984. That book by Orwell. It was a little too early. Unfortunately, in all the sci-fi books and everything, horror / sci-fi, all that, forward thinking, it's always kind of like 50 years ago they thought by now, like you said, we'd have flying cars and all these things, right? We don't. But in a case like 1984, and you watch that movie with John Hurt and Marlon Brando, who are very good. But see that again, we're back to this world of, for me, as Movies McConnell, we're back to this world of in an alternate world, in another universe. No. It's got to be correct. And the problem with that movie is they're taking, little pieces of paper and gluing them on to other little pieces of paper. John Hurt's gluing on a whole new masthead headline on some piece of news that's fake and all that. Come on. If there's ever a movie that needed to be remade, it's 1984. It should be called 2084 or whatever. And
2984.
Well, yeah, but then what they should do is do all this with the digital stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the rogue artificial intelligence that's out in the world now, that's already growing exponentially, that's going to go, to the nth degree, then by that time you could say, then it would be working on behalf of the government, which is already what, they're saying now, that some of this, there's apparently a set, and this is something that I would look to you to know about. I don't know if you know about it or not, but there was a set of artificial intelligence that some expert working group, JPEG and GIF and Targa and all the different, things for computers. That's always expert working groups like FDA and all them. They always get together and figure out all these standards. Well, apparently there was some intelligentsia, for lack of a better term, or for robotic artificial intelligence or artificial intelligence, that they had a base set of whatever structure that is, and it's been let out. Like, they were told, don't let it out, and apparently somebody let it out. So, we might be, and I guess this is what I would throw at you, is we might be right on the cusp right now of, like I said, that guy was on TV showing you, I'm fake, right?
Yeah.
But, like you said, the basic bias and the way that things work factually, and people say, oh, those are fake facts. Nah. Okay, we'll get to that. Before any of this cusp that I'm talking about, facts are just facts. The rhetoric surrounding the facts is interpretable, but facts are still facts. On this date, we fought a war. On this date, someone got shot. On blah, blah, blah. You could go into the whole Jenny cried because so-and-so got shot on that day, but the fact is the person got shot on that day. Now, and everybody would say, well, that's an interpretable fact. No, fact's fact. Interpretation is interpretation. But now we're crossing a point of a cusp where you truly cannot say anymore, I trust that video or that picture as an outside observer.
Yeah, it was the Running Man,
Right. And right back at me, you just took two 12-gauge shotgun barrels and put them right in my eyes and blew out my brains because I didn't say to you first, the Running Man, Ben Richards.
Yeah.
Right. I'll be back, only in a rerun. Right.
Yeah.
So, but that's exactly. And look at the editing job. I mean, sure, it's very easy to like, even for my book, right? I wrote my book. I wrote the last sentence. I pulled a who's the guy that wrote Breakfast of Champions and anyway, he wrote the last sentence, and he said the last sentence of this book is going to be this, and then the last sentence of the book was that. Okay? It's very easy. In a case like Running Man, I'm sure, in their world, their big budget world, it was very easy to say, we're going to make this scene where Ben Richards, is trying to be cool, and then we're going to re-edit it to make it look like Ben Richards, like, the hell with you, and then he wants to kill everyone, right?
That was a real concept back then. It was kind of scary, but now you can get stuff like that for your phone.
Sure.
You can do these little things where you can, like, have a flame in your hand and throw it at somebody, and stuff like that, and it looks pretty real. I mean, that's a cheap end, way of doing it, but they have more expensive things you can do that look more real,
With real effects, with like Vegas 10 or any of the Final Cut Pros and things like that. And see, that's where I'm like, that's where it's kind of like the bane of my existence. Like, on the one hand, I want to write the stuff, and on the other hand, I want to produce it. But the production just takes so much time and money and all this, and it's like, I almost want to just rotoscope everything and do it all that way. But anyway, I'm getting off the topic here. But yes, I mean, like you're saying, I mean, and what you're pointing out is that, many years ago, somebody in the know would look and go, that's a fake UFO picture you got there, son, right? And nowadays, the audience is so savvy at 12 years old, or at 9, or at 6, that they can look and go, look at this terrible old movie called E.T. Can you see these terrible effects? And that was like, top of the line, right, back then.
Yeah.
So now, the audience matures along with the production teams and can call BS on anything, right? But now, I think, to lead us back to the end of this topic is this. when does it cross so much that the technological wannabe bleeding edge people like me and you that have all this Luddite behind us, like all this stuff, like my video games and stuff downstairs, you got new stuff, you got old stuff, we have an appreciation of all that. But truly, on the bleeding edge right now, right? If we weren't doing this kind of stuff that we were doing and these kind of things and playing with lasers and old CRT monitors and crap like this, along with the HD, if we were just somebody that never got to read too many weird sci-fi books from Town Stationery or the public library in Shippensburg or whatever, and saw all these weird movies and all this stuff, if we just stepped in now, say we were born tomorrow, 10 years from now, would we really have the ability to mistrust, be wary of, or even care what news we're getting, how we're getting it, what it means? And where that scares me is if you truly read the end of Fahrenheit 451, it's literally like the Americans sitting there going, yeah, we're just the greatest people in the world and nothing matters to us. And in that book, it's truly Ray Bradbury not telling you what's going on in the rest of the world, but just always kind of alluding to the Americans thinking that they're just the most important and they can never be touched. And literally the end of the story is America getting nuked. He does it in such a way that it doesn't seem like it's as bad as it really is, because Montag has escaped. But I mean, think about that. We have at least been given the opportunity to listen to other people and read and hear the horror stories and those things. These kids now, you tell them that you had to read Elie Wiesel's book, Night, in 8th grade, and they'll cry. A lot of them. A lot of them would be strong, but a lot of them could not handle that. And I don't blame them for that. I don't think they've been given enough information to be able to do it. Okay. I truly don't.
Well, with the artificial intelligence thing also, something else I'd like to point out, I just read this the other day, and we talked about this kind of on one of our last issues.
Sure.
So with, we were talking about quantum computers and artificial intelligence.
Oh, yeah.
Those two things. Now, I just read the other day they're able to, they now have come to the point where they're able to do quantum computing on a chip.
Nice.
So you're going to see commercially available quantum computers sometime soon, and they showed this operating system that they're using to run this stuff, to control these qubits and like this. And they're not talking like 16 qubits and stuff, they're talking hundreds.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be, quantum, we're going to see a quantum leap into quantum computers. It's same thing had happened before with the big room-sized computers coming down to something small. It's like, here comes quantum computers. Now mix that with artificial intelligence and tell me, you have these things, they call you, okay, let's review your address. When you're trying to pay over the phone for something, is this number coming from? Imagine something like that where you call and you can't tell the difference between
because now you can.
Yeah, now you can.
The game I play is when it calls me and it says, "Hi, this is John. Would you like to," but and I already sort of know what's going on, but if it's so good, it's like, "Hi, this is Samantha. How's it going today?" They programmed it pretty nicely, did a good job. And I'm like, "Ethan?" And then it'll say, "Would you like to hear about this today?" And I'll say, "Yar, Yergel, Yaki, Horst Hawkerson, ying, 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 ying." And then it just starts going, ba, 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 and it fails, because it doesn't know what you're saying to it. So, it's kind of the verbal equivalent of a baseball bat, and I'm going to turn you into junk. But you don't see that your point is very, very, very well taken here, because it's going to go very quickly from, I am not talking to a person, I'm talking to an avatar. Well, what's the difference?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, again, we're back to the Isaac Asimov. We're back to the robots think they're gods. Well, they held the thing on target. Well, how good? Better than a human. Well, then what does it matter? So, I think that on the one hand, just like any tool, right? And a gun is not a bad thing. A gun's just a bad thing in somebody's hands that's stupid, right? So same thing with a computer, anything else. But I think that where there needs to be, and again, unfortunately, with technology all the time, technology is always bleeding edge. Legislation and compliance always comes later. But the problem here is that if you ever read something like Red Dwarf and Better Than Life, they're playing Better Than Life, and they don't realize that they're in a game. And so they're playing it to their detriment. They're not eating, they're jumping down stairways, they think that they're space explorers, and Crichton the robot is trying to spell into their arms, BTL equals death. And the one guy keeps scratching his arm inside the simulation. And when they get out, the robot's like, dude, I gotta put you in a nutritive state to bring you back from almost the dead, right? And it turns out this all starts from this guy that he smuggles these headsets on board. Well, the problem is if you go in the headset and you put it on and it slurps into your temples, then you want to stay as long as you can, right? Like Rimmer goes in and he's like the king of the world, man. Girls are throwing their underwear at him. He's having a great time. But the problem is he went in with the cat and with Lister, and they go in and they're all linked together. So now they got to all try to get out together. Well, I mean, we kind of laugh at stuff like that, but just imagine, in that story, they talk about a set of glasses like you're wearing right now, that you put them on your head, and the little electrodes go in, and all of a sudden you're in the game, right? And everything you've ever wanted, you never have to pee, you never have to eat, you never have to do anything you don't want to do. And what you think you're doing is not what you're doing, right? So most of the people in this story end up having one person who's like a physical plane drug user, and then these people that are using the electronic drug, right? But, just trying to get out of something like that. But now you're talking about 100 qubits in the piece of the framework of your glasses that could be right here. So not only could you have the heads-up display when you're at the party and somebody goes, well, this is Cherry, and you go, oh yeah, Cherry, she has 3 kids, Bob, Sam, and Wilkie, blah, 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 has all that. But not only that, then you can go out to your car and you can recreate. Well, guess what? Are you going to be able to get in and out of that electronic stimulation that's so good that you're like, well, I'm just going to slip away for a few minutes and I'm going to go sit in my car and put on the things that, like in every sci-fi movie we've ever seen, right? They put on something and they go, oh, they're gaunt, right? They're just gaunt to it, right? Well, you go out there and you're gaunt to it. You're going to have to be able to say, I have a timer, right? Or a way to get back out. Because realistically, you'd never get back out. And the drug is a direct stimulation into your brain, and all it is a pair of glasses.
Yeah, or if you did get out, how would you know?
Exactly.
Would you know if you're out for real? Would you really? Can you tell?
And that's another part of it, is they get out. And then they think they got out, and then at the very end it goes game over top of them in great big letters, and they show the kid that designed the game, and he's got greasy hair and he's all emaciated, and he's like, you've earned a replay, and they're all ripping the glasses off and throwing them away, going no, because it took them 4 times to go through 4 false endings to get out, right? But and again, we're all in this, it's all Movies McConnell, it's all TVs related to reality, but think about it. Truly think about the application of something like that. If it could create whole worlds upon worlds upon worlds, every time that you would swerve, and that's the other thing in this, is the robot goes in and he thinks, I'm not going to get caught. Well, he goes in, he's a sanitation robot. So right as he goes to leave, he sees an exercise, he goes to leave, and he sees a big pile of dishes. And he's like, well, let me just do these dishes. And then he wakes up 10,000 hours later and realizes he's been doing dishes for 10,000 hours. Yeah, right. So so it could swerve with anything, right? So that's, I think that's kind of where we just need to be careful, is that these applications could really just turn the human race into utter jello, Mm-hmm. Lay there being a copper top like in the Matrix. So.
Right. Yeah.
It's something to think about, and I think that we should look back through some of these topics. I'm definitely going to watch this because I'm really interested in all this. I'm very excited, and I want to. I want to go watch.
There's lots here to come back around to and focus on and stuff like that too.
Sure.
Great. Well, we'd like to thank everyone for tuning in then for tonight, and Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Pass the news along. If you like this show, tell your friends. We'd like to see everybody here.
And it'd be really fun to have some, if anybody's interested in coming on and having a guest shot with us. Might be kind of fun if anybody's got some real passion about some of the topics we're talking about. But as Ken-Chan always says, smash that like button. If you don't know how to do that, just drop us a line here and let us know.
All right, and we'll see you next time.
All right, have a great one.